This conference will now be recorded.
Looks like we're all set once Brad gets back. I was able to record it, so.
All right, Brad, now you're back. Why don't we get started? So the first item on the agenda is introductions. So Brian, are you going to read the roll?
Yes. So we have Steve Wolfel, representing Secretary and CEO of Mass DOT, Jamie Tesler.
Here.
Arthur Frost, Mass DOT Highway Division, District 3.
Here.
We have Mayor Steve DiNatale from Fitchburg, or his representative.
Mayor DiNatale is here. I saw him.
Mayor DiNatale here.
Do we have a representative from Gardner? Is Trevor Beauregard here? I don't see him. From Leominster, we have Gordon Robertson.
Here.
Representing MRPC is John Telepsiak or Guy Corpusero here. I see Guy. Representing Mart, Bonnie Mahoney.
Here.
Here.
From Subregion 1, we have a representative from Subregion 1, Tracy Murphy.
Here.
Okay. And I see Rosemary Meissner from Subregion 2.
Here.
We have a representative from Subregion 3.
Tim Kilhart, Harvard.
Okay.
Michael Ray Jeffries should be here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Michael, okay. And Subregion 4, we have a representative from Subregion 4. We have Phil Duffy. Is Phil here?
Don't see anyone in the list of
Okay.
participants.
All right. So we have a quorum, so we can continue. And just as a going ahead, I have Michael Ray Jeffries as Representative Phyllis Lux alternate. So Michael Ray, I believe you'll carry the vote for Subregion 3.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks, Brian. So next item on agenda is public comments. I know we have a number of folks that want to speak. I want to start with elected officials first. So I believe Senator Cronin's on. Do you want to go first, Senator?
I do. I appreciate it. I think we're at our limit for webcams that can be on in the chat right now. So, but I'm here really for one reason, and I will start and end with kind of the same word here. But I'd like to address a proposed delay of phase 2 for the Twin Cities Rail Trail. And I am here with the delegation from North Central Massachusetts, Fitchburg, Leominster, Mayor DiNatale, really to talk about one word, and that is momentum. And the completion of phase 2 and the rail trail is an absolutely critical component to economic, regional, cultural development for the city of Fitchburg and the Worcester and Middlesex district, which I represent. And this project is really about building upon millions of dollars of investment in Fitchburg in the theater block, in the Fitchburg arts community, in City Hall. There's over $100 million of investment currently in the pipeline. And it is so critical because we are approaching a tipping point in the city of Fitchburg. And we've seen upticks in investment, but we've never seen the proposed investment that we see right now. And to pull one project like the Twin City Rail Trail out is incredibly harmful to all of this momentum that the city of Fitchburg has and needs if we're going to build back better and is so critical to a post-COVID world and in our regional economic recovery. So I think others on the line can speak with more detail to specifically how harmful its effects will be. But I hope this is the start of a longer conversation to advocate and for this project, and hopefully have MassDOT reconsider the proposed 3-year delay of this project. And I look forward to continuing that conversation with the rest of the delegation. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Rep. Natalie Higgins, do you want to speak?
Sure, I'll just be brief. I'm Natalie Higgins, state representative in the 4th Worcester District, which is the city of Leominster, and I'm really here to lend my voice to say this is a regional project and not just something that impacts Fitchburg, but will have an impact on Leominster and the success of the rail trail that extends into Leominster. So thank you for the time for us to join you today.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Michael, is it Cushman? I only see K-U-S-H-M, so I'm guessing it's Cushman. So, Representative.
And thank you for your time today, and pleased to be joined by my colleagues, Representative Higgins and Senator Cronin. And I'll reiterate many of Senator Cronin's points, which is just, this is a regional equity, this is a momentum, and this is economic developments at the core of this project. Truly, any proposed delay would be significantly and severely detrimental to so many of the efforts that have been underway for this project spanning decades. And I know Tricia Pistone is on this call, and she can speak, and I know Larry Casassa, to the history of this project. But we're in what I now believe to be our 3rd decade of work on this rail trail, getting it to move forward. And we've reached that point of critical mass where we have third parties, investors who have now gone all in Fitchburg and in Leominster because of this project. There are very significant investments that have been made by private developers, in part or in whole, because of the imminent status of this project. And to delay it further, and I understand there's always project delays, but to delay it further would fly in the face of those investments and be significantly detrimental to both those private stakeholders as well as to the public stakeholders. And truly, incredibly thrilled about some of the progress that's been made in North Central Massachusetts over the past decade, and most notably over the past few years in terms of public projects and infrastructure improvements in our downtowns of Fitchburg and Leominster. And really beseech this body and MassDOT to really reconsider this delay and work with all haste and urgency to help move this project forward. Excited to continue this conversation both today and in the future. And thank you for your time and efforts.
Thank you, Representative. Mayor, do you want to go next?
I'm on. Yes, I'm still challenged with the mute button. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It's we anticipated a large group, and you certainly have not disappointed. I think we made it clear. The delegations made it clear how important this project is. But we're talking about 15 years in the works. So I'll cut to the chase and simply say that I've had conversations with Arthur Frost, Barry Lorian, and Jonathan Gulliver about this project, and we're hoping we can leave today with some relief to what the figure that's been put out there, which we feel is totally unacceptable. We're talking about 2024, and that's just too far out there. So we need you folks, you being MassDOT, and and the stakeholders that are here today, to come to some agreement that we need to move on that date, and we need to move closer to the present. So we're hoping we can get to that point, and once again, we can't stress enough how important this project is, and we want to get this going, up and running, and being a part of both communities, and what we're trying to do in terms of raising everyone's lot in life through economic development. So thank you, folks, and I know there'll be a great deal of discussion moving forward on this in this meeting. So let's get to it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Are there any other elected officials that I've missed so far? Okay, I don't see any. So are the other members of there are members of public who would like to speak now. Just do their hand raise thing so I can call on you. All right, I'll start with Tom and then Patricia right after. Is Tom muted, Brian or Brad?
Tom, you're not muted, but I don't believe your audio is working. I can see that you're not muted, but.
How about now?
All right, that's better, Tom. Go ahead.
Great. Tom Skrowski, I'm the Executive Director of Community Development and Planning for the City of Fitchburg. My office has been the Chief Municipal Liaison to MassDOT for the Twin City Rail Trail project. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today and appreciate the support of the State House delegation, Mayor DiNatale, and everybody else who's out today to speak on behalf of this project. And, certainly appreciate the support of MassDOT District 3 throughout this process, Arthur Frost, Larry Cash, Barry Laurie, and really everyone on their team I know has been working as staunch advocates for this project at the State House as well. I think this is just an opportunity, we hope, for us to amplify our voice locally to ensure that folks really understand how much of a priority this project is to us. And, certainly as somebody with some in-depth knowledge of phase 2 of the rail trail, I'm not naive in knowing that there are some complications in the second phase, whether some of the environmental issues at the Unitil site. We've got, some potential, utility issues and a city requested utility investigation that I know did delay the project slightly, potentially a Chapter 91 permit review. I know it's complicated, in short, and I guess I was a bit taken aback seeing this item on the agenda and certainly seeing the 3-year delay, although I know delays had been discussed. I think as everybody here can recall, we were promised that phase 1 and phase 2 would really take place in tandem, and we wouldn't really see a large gap in between of services. And I think what we really stand to lose from this project, if there is a large gap between phase 1 and phase 2 being complete, first and foremost, the Fitchburg trailhead would end in the middle of a neighborhood. Which is a suboptimal outcome for the residents of that neighborhood, the Patch and Environmental Justice neighborhood. But it also leaves out the entire downtown neighborhood, our most dense residential district. And I think also takes away the ability for this Twin City Rail Trail, this multi-million-dollar investment, to be a true regional destination. I think, we could run the risk of this project being seen as, really a path to nowhere that ends in the middle of a neighborhood. And I think to make this a regional destination that is used by folks throughout the region, we need to have it connecting to someplace. So I think having the trailhead at the intermodal station instead of a residential neighborhood, that's something we want to see happen as soon as possible. And certainly that will enhance the transit-oriented development potential of this project. Again, we've got a number of environmental justice communities right along the stretch of the Twin City Rail Trail. Were phase 1 to be completed, this would allow for a pedestrian bridge accessing the intermodal station for a lot of those residents. I know that ties in really well with the goals of MassDOT, both their multimodal and transportation goals. And I think delaying this project further runs counter to those goals. And ultimately all this is coming at a time where we can least afford it. As we're reeling from a pandemic, as we are, as Senator Cronin had mentioned, at a really important point for momentum with the city of Fitchburg. We've seen ebbs and flows in investment in our downtown, and I know there's a lot of folks on this call that have seen it historically much longer than I have. But what I do know is that we're at a critical junction here, and this is a moment where we've really got to strike while the iron's hot. We've got to, take all this momentum that's building, whether it's within our TDI district, all of the other, MassDOT projects within the project area, our $4 million MassWorks project that's going to transform our downtown using complete streets principles. We're at a really critical moment for the city, for the region, and I think this project is a really important piece, and I would hate to see phase 2 fall by the wayside. So again, I know Stantec, I know District 3. I know you're all doing your best to make sure that this project happens and happens as soon as possible. I guess what I would just ask is, as we reconsider, the 3-year delay, I think we could create a delay that is realistic and feasible, but still ambitious. I think if we were to go 3 years out, we lose our ambition on this project to get it done within a time frame that's reasonable and really pushing to keep this momentum going in downtown Fitchburg. So I look forward to continuing this conversation with the MPO, with the state, and with everybody invested in this project to see that it happens in a way that builds upon the momentum that we've been working so hard to create in the city of Fitchburg and in the region. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Tricia Pistone. I'm the Senior Vice President at Making Opportunity Count. I also serve as the city's contract manager.
Next.
Can you hear me okay? Oh, there must have been feedback. I apologize. I also serve as the city's contract manager for the DPH Mass in Motion project. And lastly, I've also served on the local leadership committee that drove much of the economic investments that has been mentioned previously. My personal connection to the rail trail actually stretches back since the concept of this project, which is now about 20 years ago. I'm extremely concerned to hear that the bike path will be delayed for another 3 years, which technically, as Tom was mentioning, puts this project 4 years behind schedule. Just to put that in a little bit of perspective, I wasn't married when I started working on this project, and with the proposed delay, my now 14-year-old will graduate high school with not being able to ride on this continuous pathway. And I don't offer that in jest. What that means is that we're seeing an entire generation of local children, many of them low income, that live or near this bike path, that will not be able to enjoy the benefits of the project. I actually began working on this project while I was the economic development director for Congressman John Over. I believe that I can honestly speak for John today, who was responsible for securing many of the federal resources for this project, as well as for much of the transit development in Fitchburg and along the Fitchburg commuter line, that this project should not be delayed. And I know while we're talking about a small stretch of the trail, it is, while small, it is certainly undoubtedly the most important and impactful stretch, certainly for the project and for the city of Fitchburg. While Tom and others spoke to the importance of the economic development and transit-oriented development efforts of this project, I think as MassDOT is trying to bring more equity into its overall work, the stretch within this environmental justice neighborhood known as the Patch is indeed important. Again, I think at the onset of this project, MassDOT committed that phases 1 and 2 would happen with a seamless transition. I ask that you reconsider these potential changes and keep that word by holding it to its original time frame. I know as we talk about equitable, complete streets, let's just make sure we complete this project on time. I think we've waited long enough. Thank you for your time.
I'm Larry Casassa, and I'm the chair of the Twin Cities Rail Trail Association. I was also involved before retirement with the city of Fitchburg in the negotiation process from day one, the acquisition and the fundraising efforts that were involved in getting us to the point that we're at now. And I guess I would echo what the senator mentioned earlier about momentum being so important to this project. We as an association have been able to generate significant support and momentum among residents of the area. We have several hundred people on our Facebook page. who are, we get feedback from all the time about their excitement over the trail. We told them what we were told at the very first public hearing, that this would be a seamless project and that phase 2 would be commencing before phase 1 was completed. So the interruption in this momentum would have not just an effect on people's spirits and people's willingness to be able to use the trail fully, it also greatly impairs the efforts of all of those people who are working so hard to develop the funds necessary so that we can maintain this trail adequately for the next foreseeable future. And that ability obviously is not going to be very well. We're not going to be able to do that very effectively with businesses if we have a trail that ends for the next 3 years in the Patch neighborhood and people can't get access to the downtown. I would also, the ironic thing about this is that in accordance with the multimodal transportation objectives that MassDOT is most strongly in favor of, the irony here is that the section that would get cut off is the one that commuters would give commuters access to the train station and would make this truly a multimodal project. Again, echoing Tom's words earlier, we're aware of some of the issues that have been run into in terms of the engineer not being able to come up with a design yet that meets everyone's needs, the concern over some of the activity and use limitation for some of the hazardous soils in the Unisol site. These are problems that are fairly typical of projects of this type, and they typically take months to resolve if there's a will to resolve them in months. So we I think all anticipated that we'd be looking at a delay of a few months and that the project would probably not commence until next year. And I think we're all caught pretty much by surprise when we heard that it was in fact being proposed for a 3-year delay. So that's really the thing that has us most concerned. We would lose a great deal of momentum. We wouldn't be meeting MassDOT's primary objective in this project. And in consideration of all of that, I would just simply ask that we consider tabling this action today at this meeting until such time as all the involved principal parties can sit down, talk about the remaining issues, develop a timeline for resolving any of the outstanding problems, and then come back and come up with a reasonable year to get this done, which really should be next year, at least in my opinion. Thank you.
My name is Dick O'Brien. I'm a member of the Twin City Rail Trail Association. I'm also a member of the Leominster Trail Stewards, and I was the past chair of the State Recreational Trails Advisory Board. So I want to echo a lot of the same concerns and comments made by the previous speakers, especially Larry's suggestion of tabling this motion until there's been a meeting of the stakeholders or interested parties to develop and take a look at the timeline. But I also want to comment on the impact this would have on the larger perspective. I've been involved with trail work for 50 years. I've been involved with helping the state come out with their Commonwealth Connections Plan 20 plus years ago. We are at an opportune time statewide and regionally with the COVID pandemic encouraging and motivating a lot of people to come out and use our trails. Completing this trail in a timely manner will just continue that motivation to further develop the network of these multi-use or shared use trails throughout our region and throughout the state. The 3-year delay just kills that momentum totally. So for that reason, I'm really in favor of trying to resolve the issues quickly and get on with the project. Thank you.
Thank you. So my name is Derek Cravat with the MassDOT Office of Transportation Planning. I work with Steve Wolfel, the chair. He has been just letting me know that he is having internet connectivity issues. So I will just continue to call it, folks. I think Roy, you had your hand up. Anybody, and then I believe Travis, if you want to speak next. So maybe Roy and then Travis.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Roy Nascimento. I'm President and CEO of the North Central Massachusetts Chamber of Commerce. And in my role as president of the chamber, I'm also president of the North Central Massachusetts Development Corporation, which is a regional economic development group headquartered here in North Central Massachusetts in Fitchburg. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this topic. I'm not going to be long. I know we did submit a letter on this topic. And you know, I want to be brief. I just want to echo what you've heard from our legislative delegation, from the other speakers. We are concerned about the delay in this project. This is an important project for Fitchburg and for the entire region for a number of reasons, certainly from a transportation perspective, from a quality of life perspective, from an economic development perspective, from an equity perspective. It's very important for the community and for the region. We would urge you to reconsider on the delay. Again, keep this momentum going. We've seen a lot of positive economic development here in the community and in the region, and we'd like to see that progress continue. Thank you for your time.
And Travis Condon here, also from the North Central Massachusetts Chamber of Commerce. Just building on what Roy said, you know, a lot of what we're doing when we're talking to businesses and talking to area leaders, we're looking at economic recovery amid the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's projects like this that are really going to help us as we navigate economic recovery. And we just look at the trail as such an opportunity to take it for the downtown Fitchburg area to see an influx of customers that will be brought to the Twin Cities with this trail once it's completed. And we just feel the longer this takes to complete, the longer businesses within those revitalized sections of Fitchburg are going to continue to miss potential revenue, especially right now where that economic recovery is so crucial. The other thing too, in terms of transportation, we see firsthand the amount of job opportunities that exist for those looking to work in the region with our Work North Central initiative. We've got over 1,100 job listings that we're seeing on a regular basis on our job website, and those workers are really depending on reliable means of transportation. Folks want access to the commuter rail, and this completed section is really going to bring a lot more opportunity for those that want to work in the region, or from those who are outside the area that are looking to come work here in North Central Mass. And I just want to thank you for the time, for allowing me to speak today as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So Mary Jo, I think you had your hand up. Go ahead.
I'll be very brief. In addition to my role here with the MPO, many of you know that I'm the Economic Development Director for the City of Fitchburg, and many of my Fitchburg colleagues and our leaders have already shared the salient points. But one thing I wanted to touch on just a bit, and Senator Cronin hinted at it a bit, is transit-oriented development, which is something that is already taking place in the downtown of Fitchburg. We have a residential project, which is rehab of a historic structure, constructing new as well. That is breaking ground this spring, and that's been many years in the making. It directly abuts the intermodal station, and it is at the terminus of the rail trail. So that's a great example of that developer making his decision to do his project based on the rail trail project and the time frame of when it was going to be completed. There are other developers that are also doing the preparatory for transit-oriented development quite proximate to this one developer in our downtown, opposite the intermodal, opposite the rail trail's terminus. So as we hear the Commonwealth and the governor speak of transit-oriented development in downtowns, it's already occurring in Fitchburg, but the rail trail project was a very strong contributing factor into developers making decisions to move forward with such projects. And I just wanted to emphasize that point as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to make comment at this time? Okay, so I believe with that, I think Steve is continuing to have some audio issues on his end. We are going to request that Arthur Frost, who's representing our highway administrator, take over as the meeting chair for now. And if Steve regains his internet, he'll come back, but I'll turn it over to Arthur to take over as chair. Apologies for the inconvenience. Thank you. Yep.
All right. Thank you, Derek. And I give you full authorization to step in if I'm not following the usual guidelines, as you probably know them far better than I do. So with that, thank you. And thank you, everyone. Are we at the end of comment? Is there anybody else wishing to comment? Either raise your hand physically or use the raise hand button or speak up, please.
Arthur?
Okay. Oh, yes, Brad.
I just wanted to point out to everybody that the comment letters we received, as well as all the other handouts for today's meeting, are available online through a cloud folder we have. And Brian, could you just show them quickly how to get access to that folder so they can get a copy of all the handouts, as well as the comment letters that we have received from Senator Cronin, the Chamber of Commerce, and all the other agencies that have been involved?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me and see my screen?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
we can hear you and see your
So
screen.
if you go to the MRPC website, on the left side, you'll see upcoming meetings. And if you click on the particular meeting itself, in this case, the MPO, March 17th, or if you go to the calendar at the bottom of this blue square, you'll see a list of all the meetings which are occurring. Say if you wanted to reach last month's meeting, you just go back a month and you can click on the particular meeting and all the handouts will show up in that space. It'll bring you to this page here and you can just scroll down to the bottom and there's a link for the handouts.
All right. Thank you, Brian. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of the February 17th, 21 minutes. And do I have a motion to approve?
So move, Tracy Murphy.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second, Rosemary Meisner.
Second.
All right. All in favor, and Brian, would you read the roll?
Yes, we have Steve Wolfel representing MassDOT, Secretary and CEO. Looks like Steve's back with us, but. Okay, Arthur Frost, Mass DOT Highway Division.
Yes.
Mayor Steve DiNatale, Fitchburg.
Yes.
Gordon Robertson, Leominster.
Yes.
Guy Corbacero, MRPC Chair. Is that a yes, Guy?
He gave a visual thumbs up.
Bonnie Mahoney, Mark.
Yes.
Tracy Murphy, Subregion 1.
Yes.
Rosemary Meisner, Subregion 2.
Yes.
Michael Ray Jeffries, Subregion 3.
Aye.
And it carries.
All right. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is Montachusett Fiscal 21 to 25 Transportation Improvement Program TIP. And the first item is agenda item Proposed Transit Amendment Adjustment 2, Federal Fiscal Year 2021. and I assume that's Bonnie will be talking about that.
Yes, Bonnie has the information on that proposal.
Okay, so that's the highway. Yeah, okay, there we go. So originally when I spoke with Brad a few days ago, we were going to put this in as an adjustment, but in the meantime, we've had some other things come up. We've had to shift some 5307 money around and change one of the 5339 projects. So this will most likely have to go in as an amendment. A few days ago when we did the agenda, I just had 2 little projects that needed to be adjusted, but now, as you can see, there are more. So the original projects that I was going to talk about for the adjustment was that purchase vehicle locator right in the middle of the screen. We needed to increase that by $10,150 because we got the prices in from the vendors. So that would have fallen easily under the 10% mark for the project. And tied into that project is the one at the top, the automatic passenger counters. Unfortunately, that project had to go up by $80,557. So that was going to be a project that we were going to pose to the MPO, because originally the overall funding was not going to go up by 10%, but that particular project would have obviously been more than, was more like 40%. So, but now that it's going to be a complete amendment, that point is kind of moot. So we also purchased the support vehicle, and it was $2,000 over budget. Normally we wouldn't present that such a little amount to the MPO because FTA gives us some flexibility, but because we're doing everything else, we have adjusted that as well. And the $10,150 that we are using for the purchase vehicle location, that is in our FY20 carryover funds. And instead of adding FY21 funds to that project, we simply moved the $10,150 out of the line item right above it, which is the rehab historic mass transportation buildings. That's our Athol depot. So we just took the $10,150 out of that project to put it to the vehicle location because we don't have a budget yet for it's still in design. And then the last, Brian, could you scroll down a little so we can see the 5339 projects? That's perfect. So you'll see here that the buy replacement cutaways 4, the reason it's in red is that used to be 5. We are still purchasing 5 cutaways, but when the apportionment tables came out in January, the amount that we had programmed in 5339 small urban funds was actually a lot less than last year. We programmed it based on past year's apportionment levels. And so the easiest way to go with the reduced amount was to move one of the vehicles out and fund that vehicle with 5307 funding. So that's why you see the green line up here that says 5307 1 cutaway. So we're still buying 5 cutaways. We're just funding one of those vehicles under 5307 instead of 5339. So that's why the addition of the green line and the budget change on the yellow line, we reduced it from 5 to 4 being funded with 5339 funds. And in order to, because we got 618,820, that is our apportionment tables from the federal government, we had to take $2,355 away from the Leominster Storage Rehab, which is a roof. Again, that is still in design phase. And so we just told the architects that he needed to squeeze $2,000 out of that budget. So those are all my changes. Like I said, instead of, we definitely cannot do an adjustment anymore. All of these changes are being sent to MassDOT Rail and Transit so that it can be in the system for a tip generation. But I wanted to to put this potential amendment before the MPO today, since the adjustment was already on the agenda. So.
All right. Thank you, Bonnie. Steve is continuing. He was coming back as chair by phone, and he's. Oh, okay.
I think I'm here, Arthur. The connection's better finally. Sorry about that, everyone. I don't know what happened, but so Bonnie, we've talked to Rail and Transit, and they have to consider these changes with the other changes they're making. So our preference is not to take this up today, to let them figure out the implications for the whole. So I assume yes, you said yes, right? So we're good with that. So this, I don't think we're going to take action on this today.
That's fine.
Okay. All right. Anyone have any questions with Bonnie on what she just went over, though? All right.
Yes, I have a question.
Oh, you do? Go ahead.
Yeah, this is kind of a simple one. I just want to confirm that the automatic passenger counters are for buses or some other form of transportation, that they're not some kind of like on the side of the road counting passengers and other people's cars type thing.
No, these are automatic passenger counters that are going to be installed of all of our fixed route buses. So
right, thank you.
Both the large transit buses and the smaller load 4 cutaways that are coming in May. So.
Thank you.
All right. Questions for Bonnie? So I believe you guys did the minutes while I was having audio and a whole bunch of problems. We just went over the tip. I assume we did not do anything with the rail trail, correct? Am I correct or not? And Arthur, have you talked about it at all?
No, we have not discussed it at all.
All right, so that seems like that's the next part of this agenda item, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So Arthur, why don't you, obviously we've heard from a whole bunch of folks today, and obviously we appreciate that feedback. And Arthur, do you want to go over some of the details? And I just want to be clear with folks, the action we're taking today is just to take it out of 2021. Obviously, we all recognize at MassDOT how important a project this is for the region, not just the 2 cities, but obviously especially them, but also the whole region. And there will certainly be a commitment over the next month before we meet together again in April to do exactly what Tom and the mayor and the senator and reps and others said about trying to sit down with you all and see what we can do with the schedule for this project. So we are definitely making a commitment to spend the next couple of weeks trying to do the best we can with you all to deal with some of the challenges we're facing. So with that as kind of the prelude, I want to turn it over to Arthur to talk a little bit about where the project's at and some of the challenges we're experiencing. So go ahead, Arthur.
All right, and I think, you know, everybody who spoke on up to this point is, as far as in support of the trail, you all brought out some of the important details that we need to consider as we move the project ahead. And you all made very valid points to consider. So we're going to continue working closely with both communities and both mayors. You know, I really appreciate, you know, the legislative delegation reaching out, and both Mayor DiNatale and Mayor Mazzarella reaching out. We've had a number of conversations, and they've really been strong proponents of the Twin City Rail Trail. And I also want you to know that MassDOT is also a strong proponent of the Twin City Rail Trail and realizes the significance of it. People had to put up with me internally for a long time before there was funding on the table. You know, I sung the praises of this trail. I think it truly is the best trail connection and has some of the strongest transportation benefit of any trail across the state Commonwealth. And it happens to be in District 3, which is even better. So once we, and I just want to clarify one point on MassDOT. There was a talk about the SUV for exploring the subsurface utilities, and that was a point that we had raised. We had asked that the consultant do that because we're concerned when we had to move the bridge alignment from where it was originally proposed. It blocked a new signal tower for the MBTA station, so that it could not move ahead as it had been planned. Then once, in order to safeguard really the new design and the new location, we needed subsurface utility engineering because there's a lot of critical utilities where we need to place the bridge abutments. So and we have got that information, and we're now in a position where we can start to move back ahead with a design. And we will be meeting with the communities between now and next MPO meeting. So, and some of the people touched on, I know Larry, you talked about the AUL on dealing with the hazmat on the Unitil property. We also have a Chapter 91 license, which is Army Corps permit, and which is also complicated too with the AUL on the adjoining property to go over the Nashua River with a bridge. So all of these things take time, but we're committed to the project, and we want to get it back on track and on schedule as soon as possible. So and what right now we are anticipating that we will have a 25% design between May and July of this year. We're meeting shortly to go through some of the details on the project and to address how to best move it forward expeditiously. So so Steve, that's what I have to say at the moment. And right now, as Steve said, the amendment is the potential amendment will be just to move the Twin City Rail Trail off the fiscal 2021 tip year because as it sits now, it's not ready to be advertised. And I don't think there's any disagreement that it's not ready to be advertised at this point.
So I just want to clarify something, Arthur, you just said. So the sheet that we have in front of you now is actually incorrect. It's not what MassDOT is requesting to do. As Arthur said, we're not requesting right now to move it from 2021 to 2024. That's a discussion that'll happen next month about where it's placed in the next tip. That's not what we're asking for today. We're really asking to take it out of 2021. And as I said and Arthur said, we will be obviously having this MassDOT and the Highway Division in particular will be meeting with the mayors and legislative delegation to work together to see what can be done before we vote on the full tip next month. So if anyone makes a motion or second as we proceed, it should not be what's on the screen, but rather just to take it out of 2021. All right, with that, do board members want to weigh in here? And then if there's questions or comments from the audience, I'll take them, but I want to let board members, they've heard all the public comment, they've heard Arthur just speak and myself, so I want to hear from board members first, and then I'll open it back up again if other folks have follow-up questions or comments. So any board members have any questions or thoughts? Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, I'm a big proponent of rail trails. And I understand the economic development. Ashburnham has a rail trail that we're looking to develop as well as a method of spurring economic development in our downtown. So any delay, and particularly if you have developers that are already in process and making investments into Leominster and Fitchburg, I mean, it's pretty critical in my opinion to move forward. But
all right, other board members? Yeah, go ahead. I can't see people's names, so I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, Michael Ray Jeffries from Lunenburg. So, my brother, his wife, and their 5 kids live in Fitchburg, in the area that this project will happen in. They certainly will be greatly impacted by its completion. And I think it would be an improvement for sure to the Twin Cities and to all of us in the surrounding communities as a potential place for us to go. And it's a constant conversation that all of us, especially in Lunenburg, that we're having about, what percentage of property is available for public use and is it supporting economic development or not. So I think that these are important discussions, but, I also think that a project that's not ready just isn't ready. And there's no way around that. And what I've heard today is a lot of support for why this product needs to happen. I think everyone seems to be in support of the project. The question is, is this something that's going to be funded this year, or does this need to happen another year? From what I've heard, it seems like it needs to happen another year. I'm not sure why but I do have a question. Proposing a change from 2021 to 2024 is a bit extreme. So, I mean, how did we get to this point of having literature that suggests that 3 years is how much more time we should be looking at?
Arthur, do you want to respond to that?
Yes, at this juncture, what we have is a preliminary. We have a conceptual design that we haven't even married with the utility exploration. So we don't have a firm design to move ahead with right now. We plan on getting that firmed up in the next few months, but that's part of the reason that it was there was a decision to move it off a number of years. We are going to reconvene as soon as we have an approved design. We will be looking at where it makes the most sense to program this project, and we'll be taking that up as we move ahead with the design. So, we want to see this happen. There's no lack of commitment on our part, but we also, there's a lot of permitting, there's a lot of right-of-way, there's hazardous materials to deal with. We have to deal with MBTA Railroad, we have to deal with MART, we have to deal with Unitil, and private property owners. There's a lot of steps to take, and at this point, we're just at the beginning.
If I can follow up, presumably we, that was known information prior to this. The work that would be required for this product to happen, I think, was reasonably assumed prior to this being added to the tip. So, I mean, how are we in a position where now we're looking, their suggestion is that there needs to be 3 more years of planning?
So I'll try to answer that. I think part of this is kind of a unique project from where I sit, in that another state agency was actually doing the design, and then when we took it over, obviously they probably didn't understand the full complexity of some things when you get into the project development system for highway division. So that's what we're trying to figure out. And one of the things both highway and planning at MassDOT has done a number of years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago, is we started this readiness days, which the MPOs participate in, to try to catch this stuff earlier on. And we bring in the environmental folks at highway, we bring in the right-of-way folks at highway, and we're trying to catch this stuff earlier. So the good news, we're catching it earlier. The bad, obviously the bad news is that where we think it may land, but at least bringing up this month, we actually have a month to try to dig into that more, and try to figure that out. So I don't know if that's the best answer, but I'm assuming and think that it has to do with the past from another agency. It probably didn't fully estimate or understand all the things we needed to do and deal with in highway design to get this developed and move forward. So.
All right, I appreciate the feedback. I am gonna support taking this off the 2021 tip. But to be quite blunt, I think there needs to be a fire under some asses so that way this doesn't become a 3-year, 4-year delay.
Understand. All right.
Arthur, this is Mayor DiNatale.
Yeah, come on, Mayor.
I can't help but, feel that, I'm going to use the term, I'm going to use the company's name, Stantec. Is this where the problem is?
I think
they really haven't delivered on what their commitments are.
I think, I don't know the specifics because I'm not with the highway division, Mayor, but what I would say is obviously the highway division will be looking at all aspects of what's going on with this project to try to address them and move it forward, as we all know the region wants. And as Arthur has said multiple times, we're supportive of the project. So I think everything's on the table, Mayor, to look at trying to address the delay that we're experiencing, if that makes sense.
So if we find that Stantec was at fault or was a contributor to this, are we going to fire them or what?
Like I said, Mayor, I think everything's on the table to try to get this back.
My next question is, what what does this mean in terms of the cost of the project to be extended out 1, 2, or 3 years? Can anyone tell us that? I'm sure it adds to the cost, does it not?
Yes, we do have to account for, annual increases in costs. So, Arthur, do you want to deal with that, or maybe Brian?
I could just, as part of the standard tip process, everything that is not in the first year of the tip, if it's in the second year of the tip, we add 4% to the cost of the project. If it's in this, if it's in the third year, we add 8%, and the fourth year we add 12%. So we do account.
Who pays for that, Arthur? Who pays for that?
It's covered under part of the tip funding. That's what we program into all of our tip development, those increased costs, so we don't end up coming back and being short on money when a couple of years down the road.
Okay. I'm good, thank you.
Mayor, because this is not programmed by the MPO as a region. Oh, Mayor, I was trying to address that.
Whoever that is, they're breaking up.
This does fall.
Steve, I think we're having trouble hearing you. I don't know if the call is dropping or what.
Can people hear me?
Not very well.
Hi, this is Brian Pounds, Mass Office of Transportation Planning. I'm going to step in for Steve for the time being. And I think we're still at the point where we're still having the conversation about the project itself. And I thank the mayor for weighing in on this. And I think that a lot of people are obviously very concerned about the project and its deliverability, and it's something that MassDOT.
People hear me, or did I freeze again?
Oh, yep, Steve, we can hear you now.
All right, it was me, Mayor, the chair. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yeah, Steve, I'm just going to finish my thought on this, and then I'll turn it right back over to you. This is funded in our statewide program, so this is a project. I want to just make sure everybody's aware that this isn't a regionally prioritized project. This is a project that MassDOT is choosing to fund in our own federal aid program, right? So, to the mayor's question about where the funding has come from, that's coming out of our bike and ped program. So, and Arthur is right. We are federally required to incorporate a inflation factor year over year. So the total federal participating cost, as you see here, as Brad has a list on his handout, is still $10.2 million. But that $11 million you see there is, if it were to be in 2024, that would be what the inflation factor would be. And the only other thing I was going to add is that Steve had alluded to the readiness days exercise, and I think it's helpful for folks to kind of know what that is. Every February, we do have a meeting with all the divisions in MassDOT as far as the environmental and right of way and the highway division and project development, and we bring in our districts and we bring in all of the regions, and it's kind of like a litmus test. It's like a checkpoint to see of the projects that we have programmed, of the projects we have forecast to advertise in the given federal fiscal year, are we still on track for right-of-way clearance? Are we still on track for environmental permitting, like all that kind of stuff? And then we make an assessment based on all the things that we talk about at that time. So I know District 3, whenever we discussed this project at that time, they really wanted to make sure that the cities were aware of what the status was, and I really appreciate the fact that district had that conversation with the municipalities within a week's time of that discussion happening. But of course, our program managers, when they're looking to build out the program, they have a bunch of projects to consider, and I think that the preliminary information at the time was the best that the program manager had, and this is certainly an ongoing conversation. And as Steve mentioned, we're going to come back to the MPO next month and reassess where this is in the statewide program and vote it out in the tip. So that's it, and I'll turn it back over to you, Steve. Thank you.
And I might add one more comment in here. It's Steve, it sounds like if you're speaking, you're having audio issues.
Yeah,
so
I'll stay on. So go ahead, Arthur.
Okay, and I just wanted to thank Mayor DiNatale for all of his advocacy for the project and reaching out and really being a strong advocate for it. It's very helpful to have people supporting, and especially the mayors of the two cities supporting the project. So that weighs heavily, just so you know. So that's all I wanted to say. Should I?
Yes, yeah, I'll add one more thing, and I think we're getting ready to look at for a motion to remove the project from federal fiscal year 21 at the time, and then have our discussions with the cities and the mayors on deliverability and things like that, all the things we've discussed prior to the tip actually being voted next week. But the one other thing is I did want to say is removing from this project from this year's tip, what it does is free up our obligation limitation, because we do have a lot of other projects in federal fiscal year 21 that we have to advertise. So that's why knowing that we're not going to deliver this project this year and removing it from the tip right now is pretty crucial, so that we can actually deliver on our commitments and all of our other advertisements through Q3 and Q4 of this federal fiscal year. So that's the only other part I wanted to add to this. So is there any other discussion or questions or comments before I ask for a motion to remove the project from federal fiscal year 21 at this time?
Brian, my only comment is for the 21-day comment period. We will, if this goes out for public comment, we'll look to start that about on Monday, March 29th, and it will close on a Tuesday, April 20th, which is the day before the next scheduled MPO meeting. So that's our tentative draft comment period for this this amendment.
Great, thanks, Brad. And again, even with the tip that gets released next month, there's going to be an additional 21-day public comment period for the 22 to 26 tip, in which this project is going to be reprogrammed. So there's an additional public comment period in addition to the one for this project being removed from this year. Thanks, Brad. That was really helpful information.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments on the project at this time?
If I could just briefly, I think knowing now what the proposed amendment that's being voted on, I think is very reasonable. I just think when we're looking at this project, we should have a timeline that is feasible but ambitious. And I think moving it out 3 years from now lacks ambition, but I think moving it from this year's tip to the next is entirely practical. So I completely understand the concerns we have, and I think this first step makes sense.
Yep, thanks, Tom. And yeah, I think that's one of the beauties actually of the way that the tip and the STIPs are built every year, is because we do come back and build another tip every single year, and we're not actually federally required to do that. We do that because our CIP gets updated every single year, and the tips and the STIP are really a crucial part of that. And it is an active living document. So just because a project is in one given federal fiscal year does not necessarily mean that it's staying there forever. We're not coming back and continuing to revisit. At any given time, we can actually make motions to move projects to different federal fiscal years when the delivery schedule changes. So that's a really important point to make as well. Thank you, Tom. Any other questions or comments? Seeing or hearing none, and Brian or Brad, if you see any, please let me know, but I don't see any. I will ask for a motion at this time to remove the Fitchburg-Leominster Rail Trail, Twin Cities Rail Trail project from federal fiscal year 2021.
So moved. Arthur Frost.
Thank you, Arthur. Is there a second?
Second.
Please state your name for the record.
Michael Ray Jeffries.
Thank you, Michael. Any other additional questions, comments, or discussions? Seeing none, please read the roll call.
Brian Pounds, representing Mass DOT Secretary and CEO Tesla.
Yes.
Arthur Frost, Mass DOT Highway.
Yes.
Mayor Steve DiNatale, Fitchburg.
Yes, may I also add any further votes? I will defer to Mary Jo Bohart, my alternate.
Thanks,
But I'm
Mayor.
voting yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Gordon Robertson, Leominster.
Aye.
Guy Cobacero, MRPC.
Yes.
Bonnie Mahoney, Mart.
Yes.
Tracy Murphy, Subregion 1.
Yes.
Rosemary Meissner, Subregion 2.
Yes.
And Michael Ray Jeffries, Subregion 3.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you much, everyone. And, you know, again, we're going to continue that discussion. And I know, you know, MassDOT is going to have some meetings with the municipalities and the mayors over the coming weeks. And please be on the lookout for the tip materials next month, the 22 to 26 tip materials that'll include the statewide listing and include this project as well. And I think that's a perfect segue into our next agenda item, which is the Montachusett Federal Fiscal Year 22 to 26 tip. So I don't know if this is Brian or if this is Brad, but.
Yep, I can
It'll be
start
Brian.
out with this. Yep. So we're still on track with our 22 through 2026 tip update, which we've been working on for a few months now. We plan on having a draft document available in April. We'll make sure that document's available to MPO members 1 week before next month's meeting. And we'll discuss the final or the draft tip at the April MPO meeting and vote to send it out for public comment. So we're still a month away from that. Up to this point, we've mainly discussed project program and what's called the target section, which is the project listings that are prioritized by the MPO. However, there are two other categories in the tip, those being transit, which are transit projects prioritized by the Transit Authority in the state, and statewide projects, which are prioritized by Mass DOT. So we've received both of these preliminary lists from the state since last month, both the transit and the statewide project listings. And we have some handouts today, which we can briefly go over what's included in these lists. So first, I'll pull up the transit list. I know it's very tough to read. And again, these are prioritized by the Transit Authority. And I don't know if Bonnie wants to say a few things about this preliminary list.
These projects are based upon assessments of our existing facilities, our vehicle needs to stay in compliance with state of good repair and our TAM plan. And we've tried to prioritize them by the most urgent needs going obviously into 22 and also staying fiscally constrained with the guesstimated apportionments that we will get from the federal government every year through our FTA. So the projects for 22, which are, you know, we hope to get out next year and prioritize the highest, is we have some bus shelters. Of course, we're going to buy our 5 paratransit vans that we do every year. Continuously updating security equipment with the particular focus on security camera upgrades in FY22. We are doing a project at our building across the street to get rid of that single pane car dealership glass that's on the windows of our 840 building. And make that building more inhabitable. For those who don't know, we got our HST contract was expanded this year, and we now have pretty much 75–80% of the state. So we're expanding our brokerage division, and staff is going to be going into that building now. So we need to make that showroom floor inhabitable for staff because it's really not. We're doing the second phase of the Athol Depot renovations, as well as doing some rehab to the intermodal downtown. It was built in 1996, so that building's now 25 years old. We're getting two additional size D low floor cutaways and just some other basic maintenance, rehabbing, doing mid-year life overhauls, which we've never done before. We're actually doing better planning with our TAM plan and our state of good repair. So, and those are the type of projects that get repeated in every year. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. So. Excellent, thank you, Bonnie. Any questions for Bonnie on the transit element of the tip at this time? Okay, go ahead, Brian.
Okay, and just to briefly touch on the statewide priorities, which we've been given the last few weeks or so. Again, these are prioritized by Mass DOT. They're included in the tip as well. A number of these projects have been carried over from the previous tips. A number of them are large-scale projects, many on multiple communities, for example, on Route 2. Some notable projects that we see here are in Fitchburg, bridge replacement, Water Street over Boulder Drive, Putnam Railroad, and the North Nashua River. We have this scheduled for 2024 at roughly $22 million, so it's a fairly large project, and in the same area where the rail trail is, the terminus of the rail trail is as well. Another bike path project in Gardner. Reconstruction of North Central Pathway over Route 140 is scheduled for 2026 at $5.5 million. As mentioned before, this is a preliminary list, and from the discussion we had earlier about the Fitchburg-Leominster Twin Cities Rail Trail project, it seems like a number of issues are hopefully going to be starting to ironing out in the next month or so. But in this preliminary listing, we have this project listed in 2024 at $11,343,036. So again, I won't go over this list in detail. It's prioritized by the state, not necessarily this group, but this is for your information. These are all federal/state aid projects, and they'll be included in the TIP document when we have the draft out next month.
So Brian, before you go on, does anyone have any other questions on the preliminary statewide list? As I mentioned, the draft statewide list will be presented to the MPO next month and may have some changes as we had discussed. But if anybody has any questions on the projects themselves, please let us know and we can defer to the districts. All right, seeing none, go ahead, Brian.
Okay, as for the sorry, find my space here. As for the target section, so again, these are projects which the MPO will prioritize. We've displayed this handout at the last few meetings. This is our transportation evaluation criteria priority listing. This is our world of projects. All these projects are eligible for target funds. It's essentially a master list of all the projects we'll be looking at to prioritize and fund in a certain year of upcoming TIP. As you can see in this list, on the left-hand column, you can see if a particular project is currently listed in the current TIP, which would be 2021 through 2025. Those that are left blank are listed in the appendix. Basically, they haven't been assigned a year. They're at various stages of development. All the information about the project, the Mass DOT project ID, the community, project description. The rows in the middle are from our evaluation criteria scoring. That's something we went over with this group last month. Not to go into detail with it now. These basically correlate to the numbers each project has on those spreadsheets. In the the right three columns give you a total TEC score, updated design status of the project, and an updated cost. So this is really just a reference list, and it's organized highest priority TEC score to lowest. As I mentioned in past meetings, the issue we must consider each year are project cost changes, and design status costs. These are the major issues that force us to change projects around on the list as we update every year, and something that we always have on our radar. We went over a number of these at last month's meeting. In the last month since the February MPO meeting, there have been two notable changes. First off, we have the addition of projects 611989 in Athol at the bottom of your screen. This is a new project we're made aware of last week. We've determined that it will be eligible for target funds, and we've added it to the list. As you can see, we haven't scored this project in our evaluation criteria. We plan to do that once we have the information. Since last month, we have scored the Clinton project, which was presented at last month's meeting. It attained a relatively high score of 31. That's Clinton Sterling Street, Route 62 from Willow Lawrence Street to Main Street, project 610681. So we've incorporated that into our list. And one more notable change is with project 609244. This is Ashburnham roadway rehab on Route 101. Currently, this is listed in fiscal year 25 in the current tip. Last year, when we updated the 21 through 25 tip document, this project was at about $5.1 million. Last month, when we went over this list, the updated cost for this project was around $7.1 million. However, in the last week or so, we have another updated cost for this project, and that is $8.556 million. So it's a significant price increase, about 52% over the last year. So this is a main factor in what we'll be looking at when we look at scenarios today. So this month at this meeting, we hope to come to agreement on a target scenario to include in the draft tip next month. So what you see on your screen here is basically target projects as they're listed in the current 21 through 2025 tip, although with updated costs and updated statuses. So I'll go over this list, and we can kind of see where the issues that we're looking at lie. In 2022, currently we have Lancaster, Route 117 and 70, and Hubbardston, reconstruction of Route 68. Even with the updated costs, we stay under our target, which is good. We need to be fiscally constrained in each years. Our target for 2022 is $11,072,618. So we're about $83,000 under our target. That's good. One of the things we mentioned last month is the possibility of Lancaster 117 and 70 having to move 1 year back. Since then, we've consulted with different project components and Mass DOT and determined that that is not necessary. It's currently at 100% design, so we will be able to keep this in 2022 in our new listing. So that's good news there. We're fiscally constrained in 22. In 2023, currently we have Leominster reconstruction and rehab at Route 12. This is the first of 3 years that this project is listed. It's what we call advanced constructed over 3 construction seasons. Currently it's listed in 2023, 24, and 25. We've identified this project as another project that may need to move back. So in the scenarios we look at today, that's one of the things we'll have to do. Also in 2023, currently we have Westminster rehab and box widening on 140 and Templeton roundabout construction at the intersection of Patriots Road, South Main Street, North Main Street, and Gardner Road. Even with the updated costs and statuses, we are fiscally constrained in 2023 as of now. In 2024, currently we only have the Leominster Route 12 project listed. This is the second year of this project, and that leaves us $703,000 under our target for 24. In 2025, along with the last year of the Leominster reconstruction project, we have Ashburnham road rehab on 101 and Gardner roundabout construction at Elm, Pearl, Central, and Green Street. The major change here is, as I mentioned before, the Ashburnham reconstruction project on 101. This significant price increase has affected the dollar amount in this year. As it's currently listed, with the current cost, this would leave us roughly $2.2 million over target for 2025, not fiscally constrained. So we're looking to move something around to get under this target. So that's what we'll see in the two scenarios going forward. 2026 is the new year that we're adding this year. It's a 5-year document. We're updating our 21 through 25 tip. We're dropping off year 21. We're adding year 2026. And what you see at the bottom are projects listed in the appendix. These are projects which haven't been assigned a year yet. They're eligible for target funds, but they're at various stages of design. The projects you see highlighted are projects which we've identified that may be ready to be plugged into a year of the tip. They've progressed to the point where we can expect construction to be ready for a particular year. In this case, Harvard resurfacing and box widening on Air Road from Route 2 to the Airtown line. This is at 25% design, and we feel like this may be ready to move forward. In Athol, intersection improvements at Crescent Street and Chestnut Hill Ave. This, again, is at 25% design. We expect 75% design to come in April, so this is a candidate for moving into a year of the tip. And finally, Templeton reconstruction of Route 68 from King Philip Trail to the Phillipston Town Line. This is at 75% currently. 100% is expected by the end of this federal fiscal year, so it's certainly ready to program into a year. So as I mentioned, what we're tasked with today is to get a preferred listing to move forward with our draft document. So we've come up with 2 scenarios, and these scenarios were presented to the Joint Transportation Committee at last week's meeting, and they made a recommendation. We'll go over that in a little bit, but I'll go over these scenarios as we have them now. And again, this is with updated costs, taking into consideration of all the status changes and when we think projects will be ready to go out, and obviously fiscally constrained. So scenario 1 and scenario 2, I should mention, both have the same projects in the first 2 years of the tip, 2022 and 2023. These are the 2 most important years. We really want to make sure these projects are ready to go. If a project were assigned in 2022, for example, and wasn't ready for construction, this region may miss out on those funds for that project. So we're really making sure that the status of the design is ready to go to the point where we can feel confident in plugging it into a year. So again, scenarios 1 and 2 have the same projects in these 2 years. In 2022, we keep Lancaster, 117 and 70, and we also keep Hubbardston Highway reconstruction of Route 68. We're fiscally constrained in 2022, and we've determined, again, Lancaster will be ready, likely to go in 2022. So we're able to keep it in. In 2023, what we've done is moved the Leominster Route 12 project out. So we have Gardner roundabout construction at Elm Street, Pearl Street, Central Street, and Green Street. This was moved in from 2025. Westminster rehab and box widening on 140, and Templeton roundabout construction at the intersection of Patriots Road, South Main, North Main, and Gardner Road. To give us fiscal constraint, leaves us with a balance of $353,220 in 2023. Where these scenarios differ begins in 2024. In scenario 1, we have brought the Templeton reconstruction of 68 from the appendix into 2024. We expect this project to be ready in time for 2024, so we're comfortable with it there. We've also had the first year of the Leominster reconstruction of Route 12 Central Street project, which we've moved back from where it's currently listed in 23, and placed it in the 3 years, 2024, 25, and 26 in this scenario. Again, we're fiscally constrained in 2024. In 2025, we have the second year of Leominster rehab on Route 12, along with Ashburnham Road rehab on 101. This is the project that has seen the significant price increase. However, we're able to fit it in and keep it in 2025 in this scenario, and we're $111,000 under our target in 25. In 2026, currently in this scenario, the only project which we have listed is the remainder of the Leominster reconstruction on 12 project, which leaves us with a balance of $2.808 million in 2026. We would be, it's not ideal to leave a balance like this on this listing. However, it is an out year. It's 5 years away. And 12 months from now, when we look at updating the tip again, we'll be looking to fill in some of these holes going forward. So what this leaves us with is the Harvard resurfacing and box widening on Air Road and Athol intersection improvements on Crescent Street remaining in the appendix with this scenario. So again, we've moved Leominster Route 12 back 1 year. We've kept Lancaster 117 and 70 in place in 2022. We've been able to move Gardner Roundabout from 25 to 23 and assign Templeton Route 68 to 2024 in this scenario. Looking at scenario 2, as I mentioned, the first 2 years of each scenario are the same. We have Lancaster and Hubbardston in 2022. These projects are currently listed in this year as well. In 2023, again, we've moved Gardner Roundabout reconstruction from 2025, where it's currently listed, into 2023, along with Westminster on Route 140 and Templeton Roundabout construction in Templeton. Again, we're fiscally constrained in both these 2 years. Moving forward, in 2024, we've assigned Harvard resurfacing and box widening on Air Road from the appendix into 2024. We expect it to be ready to go on time to list in 2024. And we've paired it up with the first year of the Leominster reconstruction project on Route 12, which we've advanced constructed again over 3 construction seasons in 24, 25, and 26. Again, we're fiscally constrained in 2024 in this scenario. In 2025, we have the second year of the Leominster reconstruction project on 12, along with Templeton reconstruction of Route 68, which was pulled in from the appendix. In 2026, we have only listed the Leominster reconstruction project, third year of that project, which leaves us again with a large balance, $1.253 million in 2026. With this scenario, we have left Athol intersection improvements on Crescent Street into the appendix. This is where it exists right now in the current tip, and it's still developing a design, and we've left this off in this scenario. The major difference you see in scenario 2 is the Ashburnham Road rehab project on 101. As I mentioned before, this is about a 52% price increase from last year. And in this scenario, we've moved this out of 2025, where it's currently listed, and moved it back into the appendix. And that has been what's allowed us to make things work financially and also bring projects forward. So these are the 2 scenarios which we have for discussion. I will mention that we went over these scenarios with the JTC last week. Their preferred scenario was scenario 2. And basically, what we'll do from here is get a preferred scenario and go off of that for the next several weeks and get you a draft at next month's meeting. So that's all I have. We're looking for a preference or any questions, or if there's any suggestions.
Thank you, Brian. So can you just briefly discuss again what the difference is between scenario 1 and scenario 2?
Sure. The main difference in scenario 1 and scenario 2 is from, let me just scroll up here. in scenario 2, we've taken the Ashburnham project on 101 out of where it's currently listed in 2025 and moved it back into the appendix. This is
Okay.
mainly due to the price increase of the project. What that's allowed us to do is bring 2 projects previously in the appendix up into a federal fiscal year. That would be the Harvard Air Road project in this scenario, which we've assigned to 2024, and Templeton Route 68 to 2025. In scenario 1, we've kept Ashburnham listed in 2025. Even with the dramatic price increase, we've managed to show example of fiscal constraint in this scenario. Aside from that, we've been able to move Templeton Route 68 from the appendix to 2024. So that's the main difference in the 2 scenarios. As I mentioned before, the first 2 years are exactly the same in these scenarios. And in both scenarios, we've moved the Leominster reconstruction of Route 12 back 1 year.
Okay. So the way that you have programmed federal fiscal year 21 and 22, Brian, are those 2 exactly the same? 22 and 23?
Yes, both
Okay.
22 and 23 are the same, and basically that allows us to keep all the projects in those years currently listed, aside from Leominster, which due to design issues, we're looking to move back.
So let's start there, because I think it's easier to go year by year with this, right? So do members have any questions about federal fiscal year 22, which are the projects, the same projects that we currently have programmed, and they're on track, which is good news, and they're financially constrained, which is also good news. And then federal fiscal year 23, which my understanding, Brian, Westminster and Templeton are currently programmed. And we did have the Leominster project move to 24, right? And that allowed you to move the Gardner project in. Correct? Okay. So does anybody have questions about federal fiscal year 22 or 23 before we start talking about 24? Okay, I don't see any questions, so I think we're good there. So let's scroll down to federal fiscal year 24. All right, so the Ashburnham project, Brian, is in 25 now, right?
Right.
Okay, so scenario 1 keeps that in 25 with the cost increase. Scenario 2 takes that project and moves it to the appendix.
Right.
Okay. So one of the things that jumped out at me when looking at the scenarios is the Leominster reconstruction rehab on Route 12 project, right? Which we're moving that project from 23 to 24 based on project delivery schedule, right?
Right.
Okay. So the main difference here on that one, because it is AC'd from 24, 25, 26 for both of these scenarios. And for those who aren't familiar with AC is, it's called advanced construction. And basically it's a budgeting technique that we use in the tip and the STIP if a project is constructed over multiple seasons and if the cost exceeds the regional target. So as you can see in 24, the regional target for Montachusett is $11.462 million, and Brad's highlighting that right there, right? That project is $13.3 million. So by federal rules, we can actually program it over multiple years. That's fine. That's good practice. That's okay. My concern with scenario 1, actually it's with both of them, but it's more so with scenario 1, I think, is that it seems like, so we've got 4.8 programmed in year 1, and then it drops to 1.5 in year 2, right? And it goes up to 8 in year 3. Okay. So the general rule of thumb here, and I'm going to put on my capital planning hat here because this is where I'm starting to get the numbers. If I lose anybody, let me just stop me. The general rule of thumb here is you want your obligations to precede your expenditures, right?
So when we advertise Leominster in 24, if we advertise it in 24, we'll obligate $4.7 million, which means we'll have 4.7 available to spend in construction year 1. Okay. And that's good. My concern is that we're only obligating 1.5 in year 2, right? Which typically year 2 is like when you're ramping up the construction. Now, if 4.7 plus 1.5 is enough for the construction expenditures, and this is, I'm going to turn on to District 3 on this, so I'm putting you on the queue here, Arthur and Sarah or Ann. If that's enough, that's fine. It's a little weird to show an AC schedule this way, because typically what you want to do is have something that's more of a bell curve type shape, right? Like you want to obligate more as you're getting into the meat of the construction, and then on the tail end you kind of taper off. So I just want to make sure that AC schedule works on both of these before we go any further. Because if you look at scenario 2, Brian, right? So this one you've got 514 in the first year, and then you've got 4.2 in the second year, which collectively is less than scenario 1, right? By a little bit.
Right, in the first 2 years, right.
Right, but you're still kind of doing the same thing, where you're not you're obligating most of the project cost in year 3, right?
Correct.
So I'm just a little concerned about that, just because that is a project that the MPO has already prioritized, and I want to make sure. And again, Arthur, I'm going to call on you here. I want to make sure that we're not shortchanging that project, right? Because it's great that we can add new projects in if there's funding available and things like that, but I don't want to, play, because the AC schedule is not supposed to be strictly a budgeting tool, right? It's something that we can use, and it is a tool in our toolbox to actually fit other projects in if a project is multiple construction years. But I don't want us just playing with the numbers just so we can get into financial constraint, right? So I'm going to ask Arthur to weigh in here, and then I'm going to open up to other member discussion for 24 and 25 and 26. So Arthur.
Okay, and I'm guessing what happened is there wasn't a complete understanding of AC in terms of that was really allocating money for spending in construction. Thank you, Brian, for going through that. So I do have concerns with a small amount of money being programmed in the second year. I think I agree that we should be ramping it up, and so I guess I don't know what we have for options to do that. Let me see. Yeah. I'm not seeing.
I guess the place to start here is, and I wanted to highlight that because the AC schedule is going to change depending on what MPO members want to do. But I guess the question for members here is on the Ashburnham project, because the Ashburnham project is something the MPO has already prioritized, right? We already have it programmed. It's in the tip now. And in scenario 1, it keeps it in the tip, but with the cost increase. So I think one of the key questions here is whether, members want to keep that project programmed, or if they want to prioritize, which I'm guessing is, what's the other project you put in, Brian? Over that one?
In scenario 2,
yeah,
that would be moving things around, Harvard resurfacing and box widening in 24, the way it works out.
Okay.
So what basically we tried to portray is, in scenario 1, we wanted to show what it would take to keep Ashburnham in with the major price increase. As it currently stands right now in 2025, both Leominster Route 12 and Ashburnham are listed in that year. Due to Ashburnham's price increase, we've tried to make it work as best as possible, and it sounds like it's not ideal. Allocating such little funds for Leominster in the second year of a project would work out. So
Right,
that's an
right.
example
But
of,
couldn't, okay, so stop there for a second, right? Because if you look at federal fiscal year 24, right, Leominster is already a project we've prioritized, right? Like, but we understand delivery schedules going from 23 to 24. So by interjecting a new project in there, and I'm not saying Templeton's a bad project, I'm sure it's a great project, right? And you've had discussions with the district about it, but by interjecting like a new project in there, you have less you're obligating in year one for Leominster, right? And then, you know, you're accommodating the cost increase in year two in Ashburnham. So I guess it could, one of the scenarios could be that you know, obligate nearly all of the project in Leominster in year one, right? And Templeton isn't in there.
unfortunately, so with the year of expenditure, we're looking at over a $14 million project in Leominster. So even if we were to go all the way to our target in 2024, we'd still have 3 million left over, roughly.
Right.
Possibly even less. We would not be able to fit the rest of that in 2025.
Right. My point is like, the question is like, the scenario presented here is prioritizing Templeton, right? It's prioritizing the Templeton project over the AC schedule in Leominster. Because if you're putting 6.5 million in Templeton in year one, you're under obligating in Leominster. My point is, one of the options are that you could program the entire target to Leominster in year one, right? Then the remainder of it would be in year two, and then it would be to your AC schedule, right? You'd pay off the project in 24, right?
So we would still need, if Ashburnham were to keep in, we would still need the 3 years of the AC schedule for Leominster due to the cost.
Scroll down to 26. You wouldn't, right? Like you would have to, what you would have to do is bump it out to 26.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you could still put Templeton in, or, you know, the other project that you'd proposed in 25. You would just AC all, you would front load Leominster. You'd put all the money in 24. You'd put the remainder of it in 25. You'd put Templeton in 25, and then you'd push Ashburnham to 26, right? Because of the cost increase, you wouldn't be able to fit it. You wouldn't have the financial constraint.
We could do something like that. Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's the right thing to do, or telling what the MPO members to do.
Right.
I'm trying to walk them through what
one of the things that one of the things that we really looked at doing is to try to move projects from the appendix into be funded in a TIP year. So with the AC, it allows us to move things around a little bit more. So we've been able to fit Templeton in the scenario. If it's not ideal that we have such little allocated in year two of the Leominster project, then maybe that's not the right scenario.
Yeah. So let's do this. Let's focus on the Ashburnham project, because I think that's the big question, Brian. Right? Is what did we previously have it programmed at in the TIP?
It was roughly $5.1 million. Year of expenditure cost was just north of $6 million.
Okay.
So it's gone up. It's gone up 52%.
Right. So we had a cost increase on that project. Is that, and I guess I'd have to ask District 3 this too, right? Is that the only reason why in scenario 2 it's not in there, is the cost? Or is is there some other project delivery thing that, you know, we're not talking about?
Not outstanding. It is still at 25% design. It hasn't moved in over a year on that. So, you know, that could be taken into consideration as well. So it's the cost and sort of progress as well.
Okay. Arthur, do you have anything to add on Ashburnham that would be helpful to the members?
Just Ashburnham it's been a project in the pipeline for a long time, but it's moved very slowly. So I would feel more obligation to funding Leominster Route 12 than I would to Ashburnham 101, given that it's been slow progress.
Yeah, I do see someone would like to speak to the Ashburnham project.
And then we also have someone who would like to speak to Harvard and scenario 2. So because we're on the topic of the Ashburnham project, I'd like to call on
Rosemary Meissner.
Yep, Rosemary. Yep, go ahead.
I'm also on the Board of Selectmen in Ashburnham. So just to give you an update, we're currently working on a 75% design plan right now, which is expected to be done this summer or the fall. And we recently passed at special town meeting the allegation of additional funding for the increased engineering costs. We were originally on the 2019 tip. We're pushed to the 2023, now in the 2025. So, you know, every time we're pushed out, the costs increase, right? I can't speak as to why these delays have been happening, and to Arthur's point, why it's been slow moving. But, you know, just that comment that, you know, the longer we get pushed out, the more expensive it is, not only for DOT, but for Ashburnham. It's just been frustrating, and I'm disappointed that we could potentially be off the tip completely, not even put into 26.
Yeah, thank you very much. And that's also what I'm trying to present to the members as well. And I know we have other folks that want to talk about other projects, but I want to ask the members what their preference is, because it seems to me that, you know, the MPO has prioritized this project for a while, right? And the question in front of the membership is, do we want to continue to prioritize it, right? It has a cost increase. You know, is the cost increase enough to, you know, not prioritize the project and put it in the appendix, and then would be considered in a future year or be amended in at a later time, right? Because if we can get to an answer on maintaining the Ashburnham project as programmed, then we can talk about what we have left over, other projects we can prioritize, and what to do with the AC schedule on Leominster. So does anyone have any thoughts on the Ashburnham project? Additional thoughts?
I will second what Ms. Meisner said. You know, small towns, when we need roadways done, we need them done. I mean, everyone needs roadways done, but you know, with our much smaller budgets, you know, this is a lot of money, and so the difference between $1 million, I mean, it's a lot. And especially the towns trying to move forward on this. You know, if I were to put myself in their shoes, I'm a selectman as well. If I were to put myself in their shoes, I'd be rather upset hearing this information as well. So I mean, you know, supporting them and prioritizing this, so this can be done a little faster, seems to be the right way to go.
All right, thank you, Michael. Any other members want to weigh in on the project being programmed, Ashburnham?
And I just, you know, this is Arthur Frost. I'm, you know, and just in terms of, you know, I can understand Ashburnham's sentiments, and, you know, I know it's been a long time in the making. And I don't know whether there's any options that keep Ashburnham funded. And I think that would be good to keep Ashburnham funded at this point.
Could we do in 24, do all of Leominster, just, you know, the target amount, 11.4 for Leominster?
Yeah.
And then the remainder in 25 and fit Ashburnham. Does that come out? How close is that wise?
So because of Leominster's price and it being over 3 years, if we were to program the full amount in 2024 to Leominster, we'd have a balance of roughly $2.5 million, just north of that. That wouldn't allow us to.
What was the balance, Brian?
If we were to program Leominster into 2024 using the full target amount in 2024, that would mean we would, in this scenario, keep Templeton in the appendix. We would have, in just ballparking here, it being a $14+ million project, we'd have about $2.8 million left to fund that project. we
So if
wouldn't
we
be
put
able to fund the
2.8
rest of
and 25, doesn't that leave enough for Ashburnham?
it doesn't. It would be roughly, for example, if we again programmed the full amount in 24 for Leominster, $11.5 million of that project. We capped Ashburnham in 2025. We wouldn't be able to fund the rest of that Leominster project. So it would be a split like 11.5 for Leominster in 24, and then it would be roughly the same 1.5 in 25 and another 1.5 or so in 26 for Leominster. So it would still be a heavy investment up front and then two smaller sort of allotments in 25 and 26 for Leominster.
And
another option.
In terms of construction funding, you know, the making that would work in terms of, you know, I imagine that the construction would probably be maybe 3 million the first summer, 6 million in the second construction season, and then another 3. So at least for cash flow, I think that type of scenario would work.
So Brad, or not Brad, sorry, Brian, this is what Ann is suggesting is actually was my train of thought, right? Like if you fully AC year 1 as 4.62, right? Then leave Ashburnham in 25 at 9.5, fund the delta for AC year 2 in Leominster, and then you put the change in year 3, right? And then whatever's left over, you can prioritize either Templeton or any number of those other projects you're considering in the appendix.
Okay. Yeah. So in this scenario, the way that would work out would be just Leominster in 2024, the bulk of it. In 2025, keeping Ashburnham in with roughly 1.5 of Leominster. Say roughly another 1.5 of the remaining Leominster project in 2026, which would probably leave us with around $8.5 or $9 million in 2026.
Right.
With that money, we could not fund the Harvard project as shown in scenario 2, but we could carry the Templeton reconstruction of 68.
Okay, and I do know, you know, we do have Tim definitely wants to speak to the Harvard project, but before we actually get to a discussion of prioritizing projects that aren't currently programmed in TIP, is everybody following what we're talking about as far as AC schedules and why, you know, we're trying to make sure that we're obligating enough before expenditures? Because again, I mean, like this, I'm also echoing back what I'm hearing from the MPO members too. If the priority is to keep Ashburnham programmed where it is, that's the best option, right? Like you don't want to shortchange Leominster, right, for the sake of adding a new project to the TIP, because the Leominster AC schedule doesn't sound like, based on what Ann just laid out, either of these scenarios of the AC schedule would be enough that we wouldn't be obligating enough on the project. So is there any other thoughts about that? Because I think if there is an agreement that we want to keep Ashburnham programmed in 2025, and I think Arthur, you did mention that you feel like that's a good course of action based on current project delivery schedule, right? Then I think we can probably look at moving a lot of that AC up and fully using 24 for the AC schedule year 1 for Leominster, keeping Ashburnham whole in 25, and then the rest of it to Leominster, and then we can talk about what's left over for 2026 and new projects.
All right. So a scenario like that, to put it simply, basically would be, we're looking at this scenario 1, we just take Templeton out of 24, place it in 26, and move the Leominster numbers around to make it work in terms of AC. Funding as much upfront as possible, and with the remainder in the outgoing years.
Right. So before we go any further, again, does everyone agree? Do the MPO members agree that we should keep Ashburnham programmed at 25? Right. If anyone feels differently, please let us know. But I'm just based on what I've heard so far, it sounds like that's what the members are comfortable with, right? Okay, I'm seeing some head shaking. Yes. Okay, good. So Brian, based on what we just said, you would have Ashburnham at 9.5 in 25. The remainder that's going to go to Leominster in 25, and then the entire target in 24 would go to Leominster AC or 1, right?
Correct.
If I can jump in for a second, Brian.
Yep.
I just tried to crunch some numbers quickly. If Leominster stays in 24 and we use the entire target for that, in 25 and you leave Ashburnham,
yep.
The Leominster portion for 25 would be 1.6 million. Then you would have to have a program in 25 and 26. The remaining balance of 1.27 million for Leominster.
Yep.
It leaves you 9.633 million unallocated. So
okay.
You have 9.6 million available in 26.
Yep, and that's perfect, right? Like it's fine to have an AC schedule that either is front loaded or bell curved, right? You don't want it to be like a sliding scale. That's you're obligating most of your money in year 3, because that's obviously not the case. Like you're doing the bulk of your construction in year 2, year 1 and year 2, and you want to keep the obligations up with it. So with that said, right, I think the question now is, how much did you say, Brad, is remaining in 2026 based on that?
9.6.
9.6. All right. So Brian, you have the Templeton project is for under consideration to add in 2026 at 6.5, right? That's right. Pulling up from the appendix and based on scores and all the other stuff that you looked at. And then the other project in the other scenario was the Harvard project.
Right, and that's at $10 million. That's
right.
Our intent when the scenario 2, why we brought Harvard forward, is that it does rank higher on the TEC. It's our second highest prioritized project. So and there's been a lot of change in that in the recent months in terms of its design and progress. So that was one of the reasons for scenario 2 development.
So Brad, based on what you have here, that 10.1 is the unescalated cost, right?
Right.
If that project, if the MPO chooses to prioritize Harvard and program that in 26,
we wouldn't be able to, because it would be over our target.
Right.
We were able to
be
make
able to
that
AC
work.
the project, right?
Yeah.
You'd be able to AC the project because it'd be over the target. That's an option.
Yes.
Yeah, it is going forward, and we believe it is multiple construction seasons.
Right. So can you scroll down to the appendix list of the projects that are under consideration here? So, all right. So the Harvard project is the one you had listed in scenario 2. And it's in the appendix here because it's not listed. It wasn't listed in your scenario 1. That's right. Okay. And it's at 25% design. So the Templeton project, at what stage of design is that one in?
That's at 75% currently. Expected to be 100% in September.
Okay. So basically what staff is doing is looking at which projects are at a more advanced stage of design, right? Like you guys are looking at which projects are the farthest along, which is the Harvard project, the Templeton project, and the Athol project, right?
So as it is right now, if we are looking to fill to keep Ashburnham in and fill $8 million in 2026, this is our appendix right now. The highlighted projects would be acceptable to be placed into a year. In that scenario, Harvard wouldn't work because it's over the target. Athol would work. Intersection improvements at Crescent Street and Chestnut Hill Ave. It would fit in there. It's at 25%. I mentioned before, we expect 75% in April. The reason why we developed the scenario with Templeton is because it is far along.
Right.
This was a project that was discussed last year, and we developed a scenario with it last year. And as I mentioned, 100% is due in September. Even though it's a lower TEC score, that's sort of why we prioritize putting that one in there.
Right. Yeah. So again, staff is, for lack of a better word, rewarding, right, projects that are moving along, right? They're trying to prioritize projects that are in design, or in the case of Templeton, at advanced stage of design, right? So I think, and that's also what the JTC is prioritized. If you look at scenario 2, they prioritize both, the Templeton and the Harvard project, right, Brian? Like both of those are in there in
Right.
scenario 2.
Yeah.
So, and I guess because both of the scenarios had Templeton in an earlier year, I think the question for members now is, do you want to prioritize the Templeton project because it is at 100% design, and in the event that funding is available, or project slip or something like that, we could move it up if it is getting close to advertisement, and that's something that we can certainly consider. Or you could prioritize the Harvard project and AC that over 26 in a future year of the tip, which would be 27, right? Or you could prioritize the Athol project, and you would have some funding target left over in 26, similar to what the Templeton scenario would be.
So I have a procedural question. Would we be able to say that 9.6 million balance in 2026? Could we allocate it to Harvard and assume Harvard's going to be AC'd over 26 and 27? How would we do that in the tip?
Yes, because and this is because it's over the regional target, Brad. Like when you put the 12%, which I believe is 12% escalation, yes, 12% escalation in the outer year on 10.1 million, it's going to exceed your $10.9 million target. It'll be more than $10.9 million, right?
Right.
Yep.
So even though
we could use the AC process in 26 and assume it's all the rest is going to go into 27.
Right. Yep.
How would we list that in the tip in terms of if we're only showing up to 26?
We would list the available funding in 26, right? You could list the available funding in 26 and then list the rest of the 27. Or here's the middle ground here, right? You could program both the Templeton project and Harvard in 26 and put, the Templeton project 6, you have 9 point some available, you put 3 some in year 1, and then you obligate the rest in year 2. Now that is actually fine, right? When we do that, because if it's only a 2-year AC, if you're obligating, 3 some million in year 1, and then once you get to year 2, we obligate it right away, you're fine. Like your expenditures will actually keep up with, your obligation will actually keep up with your expenditures. So that's another option, right? Like you could actually program both of these projects in 26 and AC Harvard over 26 in a future year 27. You would only show what's available to you in 26, Brad.
Okay.
Yep. So I know
Okay.
Tim has been waiting very patiently to talk about Harvard, if he's still on. Poor Tim. Is he still here?
Yep, I'm still here.
All right, Tim, go ahead.
No, seeing what you're doing there, I just want to, make sure that we try to get somewhere placed in the tip, because we do have the second highest TE score and actually the highest score in the appendix that's not been assigned. It's been a project that we've been working on here for several years, and we've started to see a large increase. We deal with Devon's and a brand new truck stop on the Airtown line that leads down our road. So we're getting a huge increase in truck traffic. Our pavement's 29 years old. It was last paved in 1992. The cost, as you can see, being over $10 million, there's just no way we can come up with the funding source for that. So we've got the town obligated. We've committed so far $375,000 of taxpayers' money to, design and engineer this project, which we've gotten to the 25% design phase. So I would just hope that we could get placed somewhere in the tip, and, obviously the 24, we felt we could be ready for the 2024, but seeing the obligations that we have here and stuff like that, if we could get obligated in 2026, we've talked with the engineers, more than likely this would be AC candidate to go over 2 years. It looks like it would be a 2-year construction project anyways. If we could get placed into 26 and 27, I believe that would be acceptable on our end.
Thanks, Tim, and thank you so much for waiting patiently as we work through that. You know, this isn't an easy exercise, and staff is, you know, doing the best they can. And you know, some of these things are a blind spot for folks. I understand with like the expenditures and the AC, it can get really complicated. But you know, I'm glad that, you know, we're having a conversation here. And I actually, and this, I'm speaking as an MPO member now, not as, you know, a MassDOT person. I think it's, you know, we should, if the staff were scored that project the highest, right, and it's already at 25% design, and Templeton is one that the JTC has prioritized, and it's at 100% design, I think it makes a lot of sense if we can fund both of those projects and put them into 26, and AC Harvard over 26 in the future of 27, right? It seems like a happy medium, and it also allows us to keep Ashburnham Hall, or Ashburnham, sorry, I keep mispronouncing that, in 25, and it also allows us to do the right AC schedule on Leominster. So I actually think that's a pretty good scenario, that allows us to fund 2 new projects and keep things on track.
Okay, so
I quickly ran through some numbers trying to do this. So basically in 2024, you would have Leominster at the full amount, 11.4 million.
Yep.
In 25, we'd have Leominster at 1.6, Ashburnham at 9.5.
Yep.
2026, we'd have Leominster at 1.27.
Yep.
Then we could have Templeton at 6.775.
Yep.
That's its adjusted cost.
Yep.
Harvard at 2.85 million.
Yep.
And then in 2027, have the remaining balance for Harvard at 8.49 million.
Yep.
Well, that could be the scenario that we
Yep.
work
Yeah,
with.
and again, typically on 2 projects that are 2-year ACs, the obligation year 1 is typically lower, and that's okay, right? Like, because if you advertise a project in, you know, Q2, Q3, it's only a couple months until you get to the next federal fiscal year, and we obligate all that at once, right? So that, my concern with the Leominster project is a lot different, because if you're only obligating like 5 or 6, you got to wait a whole nother, you know, you got to wait a whole nother year to get to the bulk of the funding that's programmed for the project, and that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? So I think the scenario that Brad just laid out makes a lot of sense from my perspective. And again, I want to get more feedback from the MPO members before I ask to reach a consensus on this. Any thoughts or questions, Arthur?
I'll just make one comment. You know, I think what you laid out makes is a valid approach, and I think it makes use of the region's funding, and it also succeeds in doing funding the highest ranked project in the region and also the most advanced one in the appendix.
Yeah, thanks, Arthur. And I also, you know, want to bring to everyone's attention too, this is a live document, and the fact that the Templeton project is 100% design, there may be opportunities for that project to move up too, right? I think it's, you know, getting it programmed is a good step. And then as it gets closer to PS&E and we can reconsider, you know, the advertisement schedule and where it can actually be programmed in the tip. But I think it's a pretty good approach for a preferred project listing. Any other members, any questions on what we're proposing here?
I guess if I can make one more comment, I appreciate the members this has been a long meeting, longer than usual, and I appreciate everybody sticking with it, and we've gone through a lot of material today.
Absolutely, yeah. So Brad, I'm not seeing any, you know, questions or comments on this, and we don't need to take a vote on this today, because again, you know, staff is going to go off and build the 22 to 26 tip, and that's when we'll take the vote next month. So today, you know, we just want to make sure that we have a consensus on what the approach should be for staff to build their tip.
Right. What scenario we build the whole draft document around.
Right.
Yep. Okay. So going forward, it sounds like the group wishes to keep Ashburnham in. And basically 2024 will be Leominster. Without getting too much into the numbers here, 2025 will be Leominster and Ashburnham, and 2026 will be the remainder of Leominster. Also pulling in Templeton Route 68 from the appendix, and the first advanced constructed year of Harvard. So that's something that we can put together and incorporate into our draft.
Yep.
Basically a scenario 3.
Yeah, it's a hybrid of what,
really
what you've already proposed and what the JTC has prioritized, and I think it does all the sort of, you know, quote unquote right things. It prioritizes the projects you want to prioritize. It allows for the great, you know, the AC schedule on the Leominster project, and you know, the Harvard project can be AC'd over 2 years. So again, that worked out. So cool. So yeah, I mean, I think staff can go off and use this to develop the tip this year. And of course, we're going to have continued discussion on this and talk more about it at the MPO meeting next month as the draft tip gets released. There'll be a public comment period prior to endorsement in May. So to echo what Arthur said, I really appreciate the members being patient as we work through this. And it's not easy, you know, but you know, that's why you do the work that you do. So thank you for that. All right, so I think we've reached a consensus on this, and I think we're ready to move on to the next agenda item, which is the Unified Planning Work Program.
Okay, I'll be as brief as I can. Last month we talked about the new Unified Work Program and the requests we received from member communities. We're able to put together tasks for the UPWP that I think address all the community requests we got from Leominster, Shirley, Ashburnham, Sterling, Hubbardston, and so forth. So this just listing you see here up on the screen is just the basic tasks we are working to put into the TIP. I'm sorry, the UPWP. Most of these are standard ones we have to do every year, but the ones sort of highlighted in green are sort of the new tips, the new tasks that address the community requests. We're adding a section task 2.6 an RTP update. We have to start beginning work on the new 2024 RTP. So this task will help us begin the process, the public outreach process, some of the data collection efforts and so forth, and working with the state to address, you know, the RTP issues that will be coming up. Then into section 3 of the UPWP, we had 2 requests from a couple of communities about walkability and so forth, and access to the community. So we're putting together a mobility and access planning. We'll look at all the prior studies that we've done, try and sort of bring them all together, mapping wise and so forth, to identify gaps and areas that need to be addressed in terms of mobility access throughout the region. We had requests from Ashburnham and Shirley to do corridor profiles of a couple of roads, so we'll be doing that under one task. 3.4 is community trail planning. That was another request from 2 communities about looking at trail access and trail connections from Winchendon and Sterling. So we're going to combine those into one task also. And an intersection analysis task, which is looking at an intersection in Leominster down near the Leominster Connector, Mechanic Street and Commercial Road intersection, particularly from the perspective of pedestrian access. And in Hubbardston at a couple of roads, intersections on Route 68 that need to be addressed in terms of safety and just mobility. So overall, we've got these tasks ID'd, and we're working to expand them and lay out the entire thing, the methodology and so forth. And in terms of a budget, we've put together a draft budgeting document. Brian, do you have that? Yeah, okay. The funds are combined from, typically we get funding from MassDOT and Federal Highway, called PL funding, and now it's combined with our FTA Section 5303 funds into one contract. This is the initial draft budget we're putting together for the development of the UPWP. We think it'll address all the needs that we have to do. The total budget for the entire work program is $747,979. So that's what we're working with for the UPWP. Our next step is to, as I said, flesh out all of these tasks and develop these schedules for implementation, and to double check the budget to see if we have estimated properly for that. So for the next meeting, we'll be bringing back a draft UPWP that we'll present to the MPO and seek to get approval to release it for public comment after the April meeting. That in a nutshell is what we're doing for the UPWP and where we stand at this point.
Great, thanks, Brad. Any questions for Brad? All right, seeing none, we can move on to the next agenda item, which is updates. Is District 2 on?
Hi, Brian, it's Paula. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Paula, go ahead.
Okay, great. Really quickly, our fiscal year 21 project, Winchendon, is progressing really great. We received the revised right-of-way plans that were expected. We provided comments, and as soon as our right-of-way section approves those, we're going to get our PS&E submission, which should be the final submission towards advertisement. Fiscal year 22, our Petersham Bridge Replacement Project, the 100% is still on track to be submitted on July 7th of this year. Our fiscal year 23 project, Templeton Roundabout, the 75% is actually due this week, so that one is also progressing great. And our fiscal year 24 project, Phillipston Templeton, the 100% PS&E is due later this month. And that's what I have for those updates.
Excellent, thanks, Paula. Any questions for Paula? Seeing none. District 3.
And I'll just go through the 2021 projects. We have, and I'm going to skip the projects that have already been advertised. We have Gardner reclamation related work on Pearson Boulevard. We're about to get the 100% design on that, and we expect that to be advertised in September. Gardner rumble strip and resurfacing and rumble strip on Route 140. That is at 75% design, and actually the public hearing is upcoming. I forget the exact date, but it's happening very soon, and we expect to advertise that in May. And then Leominster, on the statewide side, Leominster at Route 12 North Main Street at Hamilton Street, Nelson Street, that is on track to be advertised in September. So the remaining projects for FY21 are in good shape.
Great, thanks, Arthur. Any questions for Arthur? All right, seeing none. Montachusett Joint Transportation Committee.
Just a couple items. The MJTC met last week on March 10th. They reviewed much of the information you saw today on the TIP and UPWP. Next MJTC is April 14th at 2:30, and we'll continue the talk on the TIP and the UPWP. And we might have a presentation by the WPI students that did some work for us on an intersection analysis in Fitchburg. I also learned just recently that our chair for the MJTC, John Wyman, is going to be retiring from the Westminster Planning Board, and as such, he'll be leaving as our chair. John stepped up a number of years ago, back around 2015 or so, to become our chair, and has served every year since. So we'll miss his leadership and insights, and he's helped to grow our attendance at our JTC meetings significantly over the last few years. A help wanted ad for everybody. We are currently in the market for 2 part-time traffic interns to assist us with traffic count program. We anticipate doing approximately 120 counts this coming season. As of yet, we have not received any resumes, so if anyone knows of a high school student or a college-age individual that has access to a vehicle as well as a driver's license, and they're interested in a summer job, point them to our website. There's a job ad on the mrpc.org website right on the front page under news and announcements. And then I have two handouts for informational purposes. The first is a copy of a news article from the Greenfield Recorder stating that the Mohawk Trail from Athol westward through Franklin County into Berkshire County, ending in Williamstown, has been named a National Scenic Byway by the U.S. Department of Transportation. The Mohawk Trail was one of 15 new All-American roads and 34 new National Scenic Byways. An application was submitted by the Franklin Regional Council of Governments in cooperation with the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission and the MRPC. And the second is a notice of a MassDOT design public hearing on project 609314 in Ashby, the proposed intersection improvements at Greenville Road, which is Route 31, and Turnpike Road. This is a pre-recorded hearing, and it'll become available on April 12th. So there's some information for you. And that is all I have on MJTC.
Great, thanks, Brad. Any questions for Brad? Yeah, very cool about the scenic byways too. Derek Schuster, he's the scenic byways coordinator. He actually works for me, and it's a program that's been dormant for a while, and we just had some new applications this year, and it was really good to get the Mohawk Trail designated. So yeah, thanks for giving the members that update. MRPC updates.
Yes, Guy Corbusier here, Chair of MRPC. This month, we did an extensive monthly report, a 5-page monthly report. But being the time it is, I just want to bring your attention to that report is in the handouts. It pretty well goes over everything that the MRPC is doing, status reports. We remain closed still, but the staff is working remotely, mostly, some come in. But to get a full idea, please read that report. I won't go over it. And that's all.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing none, I think the only thing left is to, oh, I think we, updates from Mart. I skipped you, Mart. Sorry. This is George.
Bonnie.
I know my camera's not on, so it's easy to forget about me. So,
how could we ever forget about you, Bonnie? It's impossible.
The only update that Mart has is that on February 23rd, we started our brand new Clinton to Worcester, Fitchburg to Clinton to Worcester commuter shuttle. So that's been running for a couple weeks now. It's a little slow picking up momentum, but we're hoping that it will keep increasing as word gets out. Doing a couple marketing campaigns, but other than that, you've pretty much gotten all my project updates because of all the changes I had to make to the tip. So other than that, I don't have anything else.
Yeah, and of course, I don't want that lost, right? I know we spent a lot of time on the highway projects, but you know, Mart does a lot of work on developing their approved project lists and work with our transit division and the information that's presented there. So I encourage members to take a look at what that is, and if they have any questions, bring them back to Bonnie next month.
I usually have so many updates like at the end of the year because project costs are finally coming in, and we have things that are under budget and things that are over budget, and so there's a lot of balls that get juggled at the second half of the year. So.
Yep, absolutely. Great, thanks, Bonnie. Any questions for Bonnie?
I have more update.
Okay, I know Mary Jo had something too.
I just had
Joe has a question, George.
Very quick comment for Bonnie, and she and I did, I think, speak by email. This is about the new shuttle, and there has not yet been any news story in our local daily paper. And it just seemed to me that the shuttle is a unique enough thing, and the Fitchburg population needs to get a awareness of it. And I know Bonnie's been working hard at that. I just wanted to say that it takes a while for people to know about something. They don't move in the same circles as all of you, you know, the average resident. And so right now, I sense that that might be part of why folks are not as familiar with the new shuttle.
We are running a radio ad right now on WPKZ. So that is running. And we did do public service announcements on both Fitchburg and Leominster Public Television. But no, we have not done a story in the Sentinel. So.
Any other questions? George, I know you wanted to say something.
I have an update on air project. The last phase we are working on is the restroom. The restroom is under redesign right now, and the design will be completed by July, then starting the construction on the last phase of the project, including shelter, lighting, and hopefully by the end of this year, the project will be completed 100%, especially the depot pedestrian plaza near the station.
Cool. Thanks, George.
Welcome.
So I think that leaves us with when we're meeting next, with who's left over on the call after a very, very long and engaging meeting. Brad?
The next meeting is Wednesday, April 21st at 1 p.m.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And to be on the lookout for the tip materials, staff are going to pull together the tip document. They'll have the materials posted before the meeting. Please take time to, look at that, go through it, and have questions for staff or at the MPO meeting. So with that, I think the only thing left is to motion to adjourn. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second, Arthur Frost.
All right.
Michael A. Jeffries.
Thank you, Arthur. Any objections? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Great work today, everyone. Thank you so much. We'll see you next month. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you.
Thank you.